The signals are getting stronger. The proof is no longer out there, it's here. Welcome to Aliens Are Coming.
Most of us are raised on the Hollywood apocalypse. We've seen Roland Emmerich blow up the White House, we've seen heroes outrun fireballs in slow motion. In those movies, the disaster is a backdrop for human triumph. Even The Day After, as groundbreaking as it was for American television in 1983, felt like a drama set against a tragedy. It had a certain small-town warmth that suggested, however briefly, that community might endure. Then, there is Threads. When I was a kid, I remember watching the made-for-television movie The Day After, which dealt with the effects of a devastating nuclear holocaust on small-town residents of eastern Kansas, but it wasn't until last week that I managed to see the BBC-released movie Threads, which was an even more horrifying take on the subject matter. Released by the BBC in 1984, Threads doesn't care about your hope. It doesn't care about cinematic lighting or heroic scores. It is a cold, clinical, and surgical documentation of the collapse of the threads that hold our society together. When you watch it, you realize that civilization isn't a solid wall, it's a delicate web. And once those threads are snapped by a megaton-range blast, they cannot be rewoven. Graphic detail of the aftermath, the fires, the crumbling buildings, the radiation. But Threads goes deeper than the physical rubble. It shows the biological and logistical rubble. In The Day After, there is a sense of medical struggle. In Threads, there is only medical futility. We see doctors trying to work in hospitals with no water, no electricity, and no antiseptics. Not for shock value, but as a statistical reality, it forces you to look at the woman clutching her child and realize that in a nuclear exchange, she isn't the exception, she is the baseline. The film strips away the spectacle of the explosion. There is no beauty in the mushroom cloud here. There is only the sound of shattering glass and the sight of people being reduced to shadows or, worse, survivors with no skin left to hold them together. It is a gut punch because it refuses to look away. We start in Sheffield, and let's be real, the cinematography here is intentionally mundane. It's all grainy 16mm film, gray skies, and the hum of a city that has no idea its days are numbered. We meet Ruth and Jimmy, our protagonists, though in a movie like this, protagonist is just another word for first-row witness to the apocalypse. Now, if you ask me, the genius here is how the film treats their pregnancy as the inciting incident. In any other movie, a surprise baby is a trope for a new beginning, but here, it's a ticking clock of vulnerability. While they're arguing about wallpaper and flats, the background noise, literally, the radios and TVs, is whispering about a crisis in Iran. It's brilliant world building because it captures that specific human trait of ignoring the macro tragedy because your micro tragedy, paying the rent, feels more urgent. You see the internal monologue of a city through the montage of traffic wardens and shopkeepers. The atmosphere is thick with a sort of dull dread. The tension starts to bleed into the frame when the Protect and Survive booklets start appearing. I know what you're thinking, why aren't they running for the hills? Well, stick with me, because Threads shows you the terrifying reality that most people would just keep going to work until the sirens actually wail. The film uses a documentary-style narration that is so cold, so detached, it makes your skin crawl. It's giving us the stats, population density, kiloton yields, while showing us Ruth's mother trying to figure out how to stash enough tinned fruit. It's this collision of the cosmic and the kitchen sink that makes you care. You aren't watching heroes, you're watching your neighbors, and that's why the inciting incident isn't the political standoff in the Middle East, it's the moment the grocery store shelves go empty. It's the realization that the thin veneer of civilization is held together by nothing more than a shared pinky promise that the power stays on. The visual palette is all browns, grays, and the flickering light of a news broadcast that is steadily losing its mind. By the time the first official warning is broadcast, the emotional weight is already crushing because you've spent 30 minutes watching a young couple try to build a life that you know, with godlike, horrific certainty, is about to be vaporized. It's the ultimate exercise in dramatic irony, and it's deeply, deeply effective. This is the no turning back segment, and if the first act was a slow burn, this is the moment someone pours gasoline on the fire. The atmosphere shifts from uncomfortable to suffocating. We see the emergency committees scurrying into bunkers under the town hall, and if you ever wanted to see a metaphor for the futility of bureaucracy, this is it. These guys are sitting in a concrete box, clutching clipboards, while the world above prepares to melt. The tension ramps up through the use of still photography, harrowing, frozen moments of panic in the streets. Jimmy is out looking for Ruth, and the stakes couldn't be higher because the 4-minute warning has finally been issued. This is where the film's witty detachment turns into a nightmare. It's absurd, it's pathetic, and it's 100% what the government actually told people to do. The cinematography starts to feel more claustrophobic, the camera shaking, the sound design dominated by the rising whine of the sirens. Now, if you ask me, the most no-turning-back moment isn't the explosion itself, but the silence right before it. The way the birds stop chirping and the city just holds its breath. And then, the attack. This isn't a Hollywood explosion with Michael Bay lens flares. This is a white, blinding flash that erases the film grain itself. We see a milk float crash, we see a cat twitching, we see the windows of a row house blowing in. It's a masterclass in visceral horror because it focuses on the small things. The emotional weight of seeing a wedding photo burn in the heat flash is heavier than any CGI city leveling shot. The stakes are no longer, will they stay together, but will their atoms remain in the same zip code? The film ramps up the pace with quick cuts of the firestorm, a literal hellscape where the cinematography turns into a blur of orange and black. You're left wondering why anyone would want to survive this, which is exactly the question the director wants you to ask. The internal monologue of every character on screen is reduced to a single, primal scream for a god that isn't listening. It's high stakes, high tension, and it's the most honest depiction of nuclear war ever put to celluloid. So, why the ending? Why take us 10 years into the future? Well, if you ask me, it's because Threads isn't about the blast, it's about the erasure of culture. The resolution is a world where language has decayed. We see Ruth's daughter, Jane, growing up in a medieval nightmare. She speaks in a stunted, broken English because there are no schools, no books, no threads left to connect her to the past. The cinematography here is bleak beyond words, perpetual winter, muddy fields, and a population that has reverted to a peasant existence. The themes are laid bare. We aren't just our bodies, we are our infrastructure. Without the threads of communication, transport, and electricity, we aren't just poor, we are a different species. The lingering question the film leaves you with is, was it worth it? The final takeaway is a human message of ultimate caution. It's a reminder that our political squabbles are insignificant compared to the fragility of the ecosystem. Unlike many disaster films that offer a glimmer of hope or heroism, Threads is relentless in its depiction of suffering. The aftermath of the nuclear blast is shown in graphic detail. Fires rage, buildings crumble, and radiation sickness spreads. The plot centers on two families and how they survive or don't after the blast. Note, if a woman clutching the burnt corpse of her baby is something that will bother you, then maybe skip watching this film. Things get even more depressing when the narrative leaps forward in time, illustrating the long-term consequences of nuclear war on the environment, economy, and human life. The film's last moments are heart-wrenchingly terrible and give little hope for the future. The final scene, and I won't spoil the exact visual for those who haven't seen it, but it involves a screen that gets cut off by a black screen, is the most powerful ending in cinema history. It's a full stop. Not a to be continued, but an end. The internal monologue of the film's message is never let this happen. It's opinionated, it's angry, and it's a masterclass in using film as a weapon for peace. The resolution is that there is no resolution. There is no rebuilding. There is only the long, slow fade into the dark. It's a deeply engaging, soul-shaking experience that reminds you that the fucked-up fable of the platform was just a warm-up. Threads is the real deal. It's the ending we all have to work to avoid. It's a conversation that starts with a whisper in Act 1 and ends with a scream that echoes in your head for days after the credits roll. Stick with me, because if you can survive watching this, you'll never look at a clear blue sky the same way again. Threads is not an easy film to watch but an essential one. Its uncompromising portrayal of nuclear devastation and its aftermath is a harrowing reminder of the fragility of civilization. For those who can withstand its bleakness, this movie offers a gut-punching look at a probable future. The most important thing it made me realize was that if it came to that, and this movie really shows it to the naive doomers that no, you really don't want this to happen, that if the nukes went flying, then you want it to hit you straight on, totally obliterating you, faster than it takes the nerve impulses to reach your brain and just be done with it. Because living, and it's not living though, only suffering, in a post-nuclear war world? That is the real nightmare, not death. The single most important aspect of Threads is that it forces the viewer to reckon with the consequences of a catastrophic event. It doesn't revel in the spectacle of disaster like, say, a Roland Emmerich movie. It forces you to digest the reality of what an apocalypse actually looks like for the people who survive it, and it is unrelentingly bleak, depressing, and soul-crushing. And it should be. It is the cautionary tale of cautionary tales. It is a brilliant movie that I never want to see again. It is a nightmare put to film.